this topic is going to be a little bit controversial, I would say, but it's something we have to discuss since it's now being brought to the forefront yet again. And of course, I'm talking about the fact that, you know, roughly about a week and a half ago, there was a horrific shooting that took place in Florida that we've all heard about it. You know, we did send our condolences on the last show. But since that time has happened, we've had a lot of people talk in Congress about this incident, about gun control, about the NRA. And most recently, we had our president, which a lot of people are a fan of for some reason. He basically had a speech in which he basically said that he believes that video games are to blame for a lot of this stuff that happened. During that same conversation, he also said, I think we should have a rating system for the video games. Now, when I heard that part, that shows me he knows absolutely nothing about any of this stuff, because there is a rating system already in place for video games. But we wanted to have just a general discussion about this whole thing about video games and question whether or not they should be blamed for these types of incidents. So I do have some thoughts on the matter, but I'm actually going to get someone else's opinion first. Dana, how about you start us off and let us know what your thoughts are on this whole topic?
Okay, now, here's what the hilarity of it. Now, this was during CPAC, which is a conservative convention that they have every year. And it's, you know, the very strict conservative people go there. What I find it to be very interesting is that when you're at CPAC, what happened was there were stations of virtual reality shooting games there, and Facebook had to pull them from CPAC. So I'm really confused as to how are you criticizing people for playing video games, but you offer them at CPAC? So right there, I'm kind of confused about. Now, if you look at the overall thing, it really seems that they're just grasping at straws. They're finding anything that they can to blame, you know, school shootings on. And this is not anything new. They did this with Columbine. Remember, Doom got blamed, right along with, you know, Marilyn Manson. Then they blamed during there was so many different school shootings. I can't even name them off the top of my head. But every type of shooting game that comes out, they said, oh, it's their fault why there's mass shootings. And this is just so ridiculous that I think that it's something that even shouldn't even be acknowledged, because we all know that it's just any type of way for them to avoid talking about gun control. So it just gets lumped in there. And him wanting to have a type of rating system, we have that already, basically. You know, they put that back. I can't remember the exact, you know, year. Maybe I'm going to say the 90s when they put the label on everything. So we have that. So I'm not understanding of what he thinks is going to happen. It's, to me, it's just we're making an excuse so that we don't talk about gun control. But meanwhile, you're offering guns and you're offering video games based on shooting at CPAC. So I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And that's an excellent point that not even I didn't even know about that CPAC stuff. So that's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, Mr. Lugo, what are your thoughts on this particular topic?
I think Dana put a lot of good points in there, you know, as far as like saying like why this is kind of ridiculous. And thing is that as much as so many of us that have known about this and have gone through this throughout the years, you know, hearing people blame games for a number of different reasons, as much as we want to just dismiss it, we kind of can't, because it always keeps coming up, and it always keeps coming up by people that are in positions where a lot of others can listen to them. And it's also telling because, you know, she brings up gun control. It's funny because not too long ago, I think I forgot which senator it was, but I saw a video going around where one of the kids that was part of the recent shootings, the recent tragedy that happened not too long ago, asked the senator directly, listen, can you tell us that you won't take money from the NRA? you know, can you say that you won't pledge any money from the NRA to your campaign? And he wasn't able to do so. So when Dana says that, like, you know, a lot of deflection away from the National Rifle Association or anything involving gun control is put out there constantly, you know, for any one of these different reasons, it's totally true. And video games end up becoming another scapegoat of that same argument, you know, as it has been since the mid 90s and the late 90s. It's a shame because I feel like, you know, just seeing all this play out and stuff, it's like a lot of us, or at least a lot of the people that are being put out there that are in office and in positions where they could reach out to more people about these types of subjects, have really learned nothing. Because the same thing that always comes up about video games is that people are speaking about them when they've never really experienced them or never really looked in depth into them. That's always been the case with Fox News and a lot of other mass media outlets, you know, outside of the games industry. When you're talking about massive amounts of people that you're speaking to in a variety of different forms, entertainment news and real world news and stuff, it's always this old mentality of people that don't want to bother looking into games and look into the gaming industry and the culture itself, but yet they want to speak on it and yet they want to talk about it. They get bent out of shape when people get into politics that have never really been into politics, and they have a problem when people speak on that, but then they would do the same thing to something like video games. You even see that within the music industry and stuff. So it doesn't surprise me that this is a type of thing that keeps coming up constantly again and again and again. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think that maybe the uproar about it might die down a little bit, especially because we're within the bubble of the games industry, and a lot of people care more about that medium than anything else. But it's nothing new, and I don't think it's anything that's going to change anytime soon.
Very good points all across the board. One thing I want to say real quick, and then I'm going to give the mic over to Max. I agree with everything that has been said. I did find out recently that I found out some information that there is a senator. I mean, I don't know the senator's name because I read the article only briefly, but there is a senator that is trying to get a tax increase on violent video games and wants to use that money to start something with mental health.
That won't ever happen, for the record.
Well, hey, I fully agree. I mean, I don't think it will happen. I do think that mental health is what should be at the forefront as far as what you know, when you think about all the stuff that happens, it happens with certain things that people are thinking, and if they're going through things in their life, they don't have anybody to talk to, well, then this definitely causes them to do reckless stuff like what this kid did with the shootings. The video games, I really don't think, I mean, the video game is a form of entertainment. You can say that there are a lot of things that would influence somebody, but going after a video game and then not knowing any information about what the actual game is, what it actually does, it's just ridiculous. And as you already had mentioned, we've seen this for the longest time. I recall Mass Effect, when they had the sex scene in Mass Effect 1, which is very, very, you know, nothing compared to how you can say when you look at the later Mass Effect games. But they had that scene, and then I recall Fox News saying, well, this is pornography.
You remember the first Grand Theft Auto game?
Oh, yeah. Was that the hot coffee, or is it, I forget what they called it.
I forgot, but it was like literally the first one, and they was up in arms and saying that this is destroying the youth.
Yeah, but yet you can turn on a TV, watch a movie, very graphic in nature, and see, you know, far more than you would see in any video game. But no, go ahead. What was you saying?
And even more hilarious, the NRA went and put out a video basically saying how, you know, their guns are being taken away and that it's everything else and that it's, you know, the media's fault. And that little about a 90-second clip was more violent than any other video game. You're showing wars that happen. So it's very interesting. And also the guy, his name is Robert Nadalio from Rhode Island. He's a Republican member of the Rhode Island State House. He wants to put increased tax by 10% on games rating M or higher.
Okay, yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, okay.
You know, he went on this thing saying that, you know, if you expose kids to video games, they're going to end up becoming school shooters and act very aggressively. And even you know, there are science that does not back him up. He says they're going to be perfectly fine. So, and then back in 2012, the head of the NRA, LaPierre, said the exact same thing, and he blamed, again, Grand Theft Auto, Mortal Kombat, Splatterhouse, and a low-tech video game that came out in 2002 called Kindergarten Killers that was only available online. So he blamed that as well. And he said that, Black Ops is bad as well. And that, I don't get it. It's so weird.
Yeah, it doesn't make any kind of sense. It's, like you said before, making these excuses. But again, you could say a game is violent. That's fine. But again, a game is not going to push someone over the edge. It's like, oh, well, I just shot up all these people in Grand Theft Auto. Now I want to go out and shoot up somebody at my local store. That makes no kind of sense. There's a lot more going on in that person's life, inside their head, outside of this, just a video game. So that's my thoughts.
And this is just all so that we don't talk about gun control, which is the actual issue. Yeah.
No. Instead, oh no, you're right. That's right. And not only is that a deflection, but yeah, it's a focus on let's. A lot of people think we should build a wall, but we don't. We have all these issues going on here where we are at.
We don't have to worry about anybody come in. We have our own problems that we can't seem to deal with.
Yeah,
they don't want
exactly.
I don't blame them.
So it's all a deflection across the board. But again, that's just my thoughts. Pretty sure we have some of the same thoughts. So Mr. Max Muller, what are your thoughts on this particular situation? And do you think that video games are to blame for a lot of the stuff going on with violence today?
Well, I think you know my answer to this, but this is like, to me, this is has been prevalent in my life since I was started playing games. So the conversation has never really went away for me per se. Just like a lot of the adults that I interacted with growing up and all that sort of stuff, especially in the area I'm from, they kind of just all because I'm from a small town, and a lot of them, they just kind of came out here to raise kids and everything. And they're all just sort of in their ways, and they don't really open up to other types of evidence or anything like that. They've just always been told that media is bad, so they believe it, and from a lot of the discussions I had with them, I can tell they've never really done their research or anything like that. If you've done your research on this sort of stuff and you genuinely believe that this is the case, then that's fine, but just a lot of cases like what you guys were saying earlier, where it's just the people that make these claims are people that have very little to no experience with games. How come everyone who has experience with games says this isn't the case? You will never, from my experience, you will never find someone who has extensive experience with video games saying this is the case. I've never seen that before. It's only people who haven't played them who are blaming them. And like you guys said earlier, movies are way worse. Movies, you're actually seeing people do this, whereas a game, it's it's animated, it's through a screen. I understand there's that whole interactivity aspect, which I'm actually a big fan of, and I think can do good things, the whole interactivity, making things deeper and stuff like that. But I don't think that it has anything to do with making people violent and go on school shootings. That's the other thing when it comes to having these discussions with people is growing up, I had a bunch of friends that played games, and all their parents were very angry about it and everything. Not one of my friends growing up, none of these people that played games, myself included, are violent people in at all. I have never had experience with, you guys, people I've met over at Tech Raptor, over at Gamecast, everyone I've met in the games industry, stuff like that as well. These are some of the nicest people I've ever met. They've never from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like they would ever hurt anyone or anything like that. Obviously, you never know someone to that degree, but my point is, just because they're playing games, my point is everyone plays games. A ton of people play games. Someone who has mental issues and would go out and shooting and stuff like that, that makes it makes sense that they play games because everyone does. That statistic is so high. I feel like it's almost impossible to actually make that correlation. Just like how basically everyone watches movies, basically everyone engages in these forms of entertainment and media. I feel like blaming it for that sort of stuff just doesn't really make sense at this point, and it's just kind of avoiding the argument in general. It's just it's a very frustrating thing because I like to go off of things based on my own experience and form my opinions around that. And like I said, everyone I've met and like doing this line of work, everything like that has always been incredibly nice people, like go out of their way to do what they can for others and stuff like that. It's like, it's just, it really doesn't make much sense to me. And it's like, again, everyone plays games, and games is also more of an isolated thing. And a lot of the people that tend to go on these shootings and stuff like that, they are more isolated people. It makes sense that games is a hobby they would pick up. But like that correlation, it's a stretch to me. It's a big stretch to me. Like games are not the thing that would send someone off to go do something like that. I don't understand it. It's always been to me just avoiding the argument. Even when I was a kid. Like that's just always been my thoughts on it. It just doesn't make sense. Like if you just sit and actually genuinely think about this sort of thing and actually look into it, I feel like it's not even an argument at that point. I really don't.
I agree. Very good points. Okay, Gary, I wanted to get your opinions on this particular subject. And I also wanted to ask the question, because you do live in the UK, are these type of things talked about in the news cycles over there? Like when something happens in the UK, did it be like, oh yeah, that latest video game definitely caused this incident, or are you only seeing this stuff happening here in the US?
Yeah, I guess it really is mainly US. You don't tend to see that discussed, with regards to major occurrences in the UK much. But obviously, we don't have, it's completely illegal to have a gun here. So the laws are much different. So yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like I know the dynamics of everything that's going on over there, because I know, you guys live over there, so you know the ins and outs of the laws and everything like that. But I just kind of agree with what you guys were saying in the sense that the only reason they're bringing this up and trying to put it all on video games is because they don't want to have the real conversation that needs to be had. And, I saw the viral video that was going around of, the teen who was underage. He went to cigarettes or alcohol or anything like that, but he was able to go to a private gun show and acquire a gun. Like, when you have stuff like that going on, there's clearly a problem, and there's clearly something that needs to be changed by the higher up station and put it, it's the scapegoat basically. And, they want it to be spread to everybody in society. So that's just like the easy thing, because it's been going on so long. Like video games has always been a scapegoat for these kind of things. So it's now easier to just blame that because, everybody already has it in their mind. Like it's like lines. So yeah, that's a deflection tactic in my opinion at this point. And I don't think anything serious will come of it because we've seen this happen time and time again. And at the moment, I think obviously, like Max said, there are people who actually believe it, but I think majority of people kind of see it as a joke at this point, especially because so many people do play video games. So I don't think they're actually go video games. I just think this is a whole deflection tactic. Thoughts from an outsider, from someone who doesn't live in the country.
I agree. Yeah, I agree pretty much with what everyone had to say. As I said before, it's a very deep topic. So we necessarily, I think we definitely had to talk about it though, because video games. I love video games. So if I know someone's trying to attack video games, it is an unnecessary attack. I think you definitely have to speak out about that type of stuff. So glad that we spoke on it. We'll see what happens. As you said, I don't really think anything major will happen in regards to video games. people will continue to blame it for a lot of incidents, but until people start to realize that these issues begin from within, you know, like I said, mental health is a huge issue in this country that a lot of people really neglect, and people really need to take the time. If someone has any issues, I definitely would urge them to go out there, get the counseling that they need. Don't worry about how you are viewed by others. If you have a friend that hears about you getting counseling and teases you about it, maybe that person shouldn't be your friend. Because if they are your friend, they'll be in your corner and they will back you no matter what. And they will also encourage you to get help if you need it. But I think it begins with that more than anything else. This has nothing to do with the entertainment. We can say, yeah, certain movies are violent, so on and so forth. But again, it begins with what's going on in that person's life, the mental health. And of course, obviously, if they have parents in their life that aren't doing their job, they need to be held accountable as well for taking care of their kids. But yeah, people have to stop making excuses and start standing up and understanding where these issues come from. So glad we had that discussion. I also want to give a shout out to the Throwdown crew because they also had this discussion. And I would urge anybody that's listening to this discussion, definitely listen to what they had to say, because I think that was a fantastic thing that they also spoke about on their show this past week. So I want to give them props for that as well. But let's go ahead and let's shift gears.